super excited about what you have to prepared for us today.
Great. Thank you, Heather. So good to be with you all again. One of these days, maybe I'll be in person with you, but it's good to see some familiar faces. Like Heather said, like this is a topic that I think we need to spend more time on, and it's really timely, January, February, to be thinking about it. Hopefully, you got some rest in January. You got to just be a little bit rejuvenated after the end of year, and you're ready to hit the ground running. And it's hard to believe it's February already, but I think in my experience and my decades of fundraising experience as a missionary overseas, raising my own support, running alumni relations for a university, which if you've been in any sort of alumni role, you know that's the catch-all for all of the things that don't fit somewhere. And then as a director of development for local nonprofits too, we always chase squirrels in fundraising. We're always looking at that shiny thing or somebody's idea that worked for them and how can we make it work for us. And by having a plan and working the plan, it allows us to then add in those things that maybe do make sense for us in the future, but it also allows us to say no to those things that don't align with our capacity, our mission, or even our strategies around how we're fundraising. So this is a topic that, yeah, I think if we can get a plan in place and work the plan and remind ourselves to work the plan, it's going to serve us well in the long run. So, that was a little bit, I kind of threw a little bit in there about me, but what I do for the focus group, I'm a senior consultant. So I have clients that I work with and everywhere from fundraising training all the way to feasibility studies and capital campaigns. But then I also, on the client services side, I'm a project management professional. So I also oversee our back office project managers and project assistants, which is probably why I also love annual plans. They have structure, they have processes, and they let people know their roles and expectations, which is really helpful too. So that's where it's kind of coming from in that regard. But as Heather said, please throw things in the chat. Please interrupt me. I want this to be valuable to you. There is a lot of content in here, but the way I've built it is there is a structure that you can follow. So today I kind of want to walk us through some of that practice and process. And then my hope and desire would be that you can take the deck and then work through it with your team and really develop this out a little bit more because we do have those different steps there. So we're going to do kind of high level, and then we'll do some work together, and then that'll lead you into some next steps where you can build out your own plan. So just by a raise of hands, how many of you have an annual plan or what you would say is kind of your month by month guide of what you're doing? Got one hand, two, three. Okay. Couple of hands. Okay, kind of, sort of. All right. So this is a process that you can take and modify, and certainly put it in your own context. And like Heather mentioned, we're going to give you a worksheet later on that is the bare basics, but there's really, really a lot you can do with this, and we'll talk through what that is. So what I first wanted to start us off with is just a reminder, and maybe hopefully you had a chance to watch our webinar on like how do we segment our prospect lists and really be thinking about them in different groups. Because as we look at individuals, we have individual strategies and group strategies. And so we're going to talk about that today as it relates to how do we kind of put that in our annual plan. So there's a few terminologies that I wanted to run through that I'll probably refer to. First of all is our target high and target low. This is really our forecasting of where do we see people fitting. And if you've been with us through the case statement work, you know that this kind of aligns people with where they're at in the gift plan. When you make an ask, it helps people see their role in that. And so a target high is what we're willing to ask for. And a target low is what we're 90% sure that they'll give this year. And that low is usually based on historical, what we know about them, what they have done, an average over the last few years, or it's based on what we've seen them give to other organizations, or it's that easy yes. What's the entry point gift to get them in the door so that we can then show impact? So that's high and low there. As we think about our donors, we think about them, and this is again a terminology that you might want to customize for yourself, but I think of them as in priorities. So we have a priority one donors first, are individuals who are really, they're our lead givers. We're having personal contact with them. It's an individual relationship. And usually they can give 2.5% or more of our annual budget. Okay. So that's really something that we're thinking about. And we believe that they're really one of those top kind of individuals and our organization, our mission aligns with them and is top for them. Typically, this is like 10 to 15 people on your list. Usually, they're owned by the executive director or even the board chair. But again, this is an individual focus here. The next one is our priority 2 folks. And these are individuals that still are doing personal contact. So it's still that one-on-one relationship, but we might also break them into smaller affinity groups as well to kind of build connection with them in that regard. This group is giving between 0.05% and 2.5%. So they're really kind of in that gap there, in that space. But oftentimes it's in person or over the phone cultivation for them, really engaging in that space with them. And they're in the top or middle tier kind of organizations you are that they support as well. So again, really high priority. They align, they're passionate with you, and they're leaning in that. Does each top tier give 2.5? Nope, we're just going to use that as kind of anybody who's giving 2.5% and above or has capacity to give, they're our priority ones. So we're going to do some math here in a minute to help you see this come to life.
And Benji, just to jump in with that is that's something that she just added there that I've heard her say before is has the capacity. They may not have given, but has the capacity is another part to be attentive to.
Yeah, we know that they could. And so we're putting them in that category because of their individual cultivation that's needed. And then we have our priority 3 donors. These are more of your monthly givers, your people that maybe attend your fundraising banquet and give a gift, but they're not kind of with you as one of your top organizations. And once you really kind of think about it, these are your group strategy. So mass mailings, they're probably getting that annual appeal letter every year, those kinds of things. And they might have limited financial ability right now, but that doesn't mean that down the road they might, could become a 1 or a 2. So we don't want to forget about them because they are important. And for a lot of organizations, this is your sustaining partner level. These are the people that have been with you for years and just are consistent in their giving. And so there's potential for them here, but we want to recognize them in that space. So here's our first little quick math opportunity here. So as we think about this, let's take that annual goal. So this is your annual fundraising amount. This is the remaining need that you need to raise this year. So if you think about this, if you have a case statement, this is what your dollar amount may be based off of in your gift plan, but this is what you have as a target goal. So as you think about your priority ones, that's going to be the 2.5% and higher of that annual goal. And that's going to equal that dollar amount of what their capacity to give could be. Then your priority 2 is going to be that 0.05% to 2.5. So we're going to do 0.05 and then we'll find that range there for their annual goal. And then our priority 3, we're going to do the math of what is less than 0.05% of your annual goal. So I'll give everyone just a few minutes to populate that math. What you should get is you should get an outline that says, okay, our priority ones are 5,000 and above. Our priority 2s are 2,000 to 5,000, and our priority 3s are below that 2,000 mark. That math wasn't the best, but.
Well, and don't feel like you have to be dollars and cents. You can round like she just did.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Rounding is great. And if you say, when you do this later on and you come back to this and you're like, wow, we only have 3 of our priority ones, adjust that down, adjust it to 2% and see if you get that 10 to 15 in that priority 1 number. Make it work for you. We want to see this kind of as good segmented lists of people within that. So this is just a guideline for you, but you can certainly flex that if you need to.
I know a few people had questions on the tiers, but just a reminder, Evangeline did a great session that we highlighted in the pre-work that is on segmenting. So if you want to dig in deeper on that and those segments and all the details around that, go back and take a look at that on the recording that's on our website or that's in your past email. So giving some people extra time to do their math.
Good.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So, we have our number, like our goal for the year.
Yep.
And that's kind of assuming continued giving.
Yes.
And then we have our growth of what we think we're going to need on top of that.
Yep.
Should I be calculating this on that with that overall number?
Your overall number, because even though it's assumed giving, we still want to identify those individuals as priority 1s, 2s, and 3s. So we want to count them in that number. Great question. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Okay. So we're going to use that number as we go throughout, but we wanted to just get a feel for our priority ones, twos, threes. I call them P1s, P2s. You can call them, you can give it a different name if you want. But this helps us, again, just look at this from, okay, here's my priority ones, 10 to 15 names. These are the, I know I need to sit across the table from them group. They have capacity. We're a key area of passion of theirs, and they're with us. Now, the last group here is the priority 4 donors. These are people that have either been introduced to us, maybe they're, 2 people removed. We don't know them yet, but we want to get to know them. We've heard that they're passionate about our work. Maybe their giving has said that to other organizations, and they have the potential to be 1s or 2s, which means they have capacity to give over that 0.05% level. We don't want to forget about them. We need to do our research. We need to do our cultivation around them. And so this is another group that we're going to talk about. How do they fit into our annual plan? We want to keep this in mind. The other
But they
reason
haven't ever given yet? Is that the difference? They just haven't given yet.
Correct. Yep, they haven't given yet. So these are just people that are on our radar that we want to get to know. We don't want to forget about them. Okay. So as we think about an annual development plan, it's really a month-by-month calendar. It's a tracking tool for you to really look at what are all of our ask activities that are happening, and then what are the cultivation and care activities that are leading to those asks. And it's also a place where we have kind of our task list of updating our fundraising materials. When do those need to happen? Our development team meetings, if you have a volunteer core team of people or board members who are supporting you in this work, how frequently are you meeting? What are those meetings and tasks look like? Your events, right? Those sit on this calendar as well. What are the different donor communications that are going out to people? When are they hitting? Are we making sure there's, good separation between everything? Maybe you've got your grant timelines on here as well, especially if you have reports that you need to submit for regular grants or you have new grant opportunities in front of you. And then other ones would be planned giving opportunities or activities that you're engaging in as well. So it's really a comprehensive document that allows us to look at not only donor care and raising the funds, but what's all of that supplemental work that needs to go into this. So I'd love to start with cultivation and care activities. And I think this is a helpful list to just have ongoing in your work, but it also could create some workflows for you as well. And depending on the database you live in, some of these workflows can be built into that, but some of them will need to be manually run. And so this is really the opportunity where we think about care and cultivation is leading up to the ask. And how do we say thank you? This isn't the ask, but it's leading up to and then saying thank you. These are just some examples of care and cultivation activities. So under thanking, right, 48-hour acknowledgement for all gifts. That is something we should all strive to, especially in this noisy world we live in. It's really important that we acknowledge this. And oftentimes we say in the fundraising world, there are 6 really key words to fundraising. Thank you, thank you, thank you, right? We want to say thank you 3 times for every gift. This first acknowledgement is one of those. Another thank you process could be we make phone calls for gifts over a certain amount. And you can use the math you did to say, you know what? Okay, we've got this many people giving in these levels, our P3s. We're going to say thank you to everyone over $250 or over 100, and that's just a phone call. That's a really great volunteer activity. That's a really great board member activity. If you're like looking for a low barrier, low pressure, oftentimes they'll get a voicemail. It's still very meaningful though, for somebody to pick up the phone and just say, thank you for your gift today. Another one could be handwritten notes for first-time donors. We did a donor panel, a major donor panel a couple weeks ago at an event, and every single one of them, and these individuals are giving millions of dollars away out of their family foundations. They said there's nothing like a handwritten card. So it goes a really long way. Again, a great opportunity to pull in board members. In fact, the other day I got an email forwarded from a client of mine who it was from a donor who said, I've never received a thank you card handwritten from a board member. Like that just blew this donor's mind. You give them a list, you give them a stack of cards, maybe they tackle it quarterly, maybe you do it as part of a board meeting or a board retreat, but that's another way to kind of build that in. And then obviously board member calls for major gifts to just, again, bring in another voice to say thank you and share the impact.
This is something, Vanjie, that we hear all the time from family foundations, from different donors. I just don't understand why nonprofits can't say thank you. Now, I'm sure most of you on this call, that's not you. You're all doing a great job, and I commend you for that. But this is something that absolutely separates us. And I think as Christ followers and nonprofits of Christian organizations, that spirit of gratitude for people's generosity, for their partnership, for investing in things that are kingdom oriented, we want that to be at the very front and center of our cultivation, our stewardship planning. So I do regularly look at this as someone who has my own support and also works with organizations that do these rhythms. We have to look at how often are we thinking from a donor's perspective. So critical, and love that you started that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have to do this and really set ourselves apart. So evaluate,
Yeah,
self-evaluate that.
definitely. And I would say in these first two categories of the thank you process and impact updates, like the number one failure in fundraising is follow up. Like if we're wondering why we're not retaining our donors, our follow-up is lacking big time. And so we really want to lean into that. And I hear that a lot in feasibility study interviews. Oh, I gave a big gift, but I didn't know what happened with it. I didn't see the ROI, or they just kind of moved on. I'm not connected anymore. And I'm like, oh, like they said yes to a feasibility study, which means they still love the work. They love the ministry side of it, but they're not feeling connected. And that's where we need to think about how do we personalize this for every giver too.
Yeah,
So
love it.
impact updates and care and cultivations, right? Are these quarterly newsletters? Are they personalized updates for major donors, especially if somebody gave to a specific project? How do you report back to them throughout the year? And that honestly, like videos go such a long way. They don't need to be published, but if you have something on site and you can just grab a quick video and text it to that donor, if that's a communication method of theirs, that's huge. Like that goes a long ways. Annual impact reports, again, just showing them what the ROI is, or video testimonials from beneficiaries. And as we think about care and cultivation activities, we think about this kind of impact space of those that give with their head and those that give with their heart. The people who give with their head are going to want the metrics, right? They're going to want the annual impact updates. They're going to want the quarterly updates. Those that give with their heart, well, Hillary is all numbers every day, right?
All
Those,
about the data.
all the data, I love it. Those that give with their heart are really looking for those stories of lives transformed. And so if you get a call, I think about like the homeless ministry, like if you get a call of like just a need and you're able to meet that need, just like send that story out. Like just text somebody and say, today we were able to meet a mom right where she was. Let me tell you how. Those are meaningful moments for people. And then we have personal touch points. These are other ways that we care for our donors, right? Birthday and anniversary acknowledgments. When I say anniversary here, it's not necessarily marriage. It could be their anniversary of their giving. One of the most meaningful thank yous I ever received was a 10-year anniversary note of this is how much you've given to us over the last 10 years. This is how many lives you've transformed through that dollar. I had no idea. I'm a monthly supporter. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's built into my budget. I got that email and I was floored. And I wrote back and said, please ask me for more. Like, this is so big right now. I had no idea. So, those are anniversary moments. First year in, like, or monthly donors, especially, you've been with us for 12 months. Look at what you've done. So, those are little moments that you can do. Non-ask coffee meetings, lunches, gatherings. How can you live in their world? Do they have a kid that plays sports? Does their grandkids play sports? Can you just go be with them in their space? Those are non-ask relational things. Inviting them to exclusive events, either your events or events you're attending on behalf of your ministry. It's great to pull them into your world a little bit more. And then thinking about how do we recognize them, what's appropriate for them. Obviously, if they're a business, this kind of comes with sponsorships and that kind of thing. But is there another way that they should be recognized in that regard? So I asked everyone to do a little bit of pre-work around care and cultivation activity levels, different things that you're doing. So as we look at this and as we think about our priority levels, if you've got your list in front of you, I'd love you to take just a couple moments to think through, what are we doing for our P1s? What are we doing for our top givers that are individual connection points that might be different than our P2s and our P3s. And then the same with P2s and the same with P3s. What are the different things? And I've given you some examples here of different ways, but as you think about it, like, have you already started to divide out those connection points and care activities with each one? So we're going to take just a couple seconds to think through that, scribble down some notes. If you've got a list, you can start writing P1, P2, P3 next to it, but would love to lean into that.
Did you see the question from Angela? Okay,
Yeah.
I figured, okay, I just wanted to make sure before you jumped in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so this is kind of one of your first work pieces that you can do is look at all of your care and cultivation activities that you're currently doing and start identifying who do we do these for? They shouldn't all say P1, P2, P3s, right? There should be some designation between these groups because we're thinking individual strategies and group strategies. We're thinking what level of giving are they giving versus are they just kind of sustaining partners with us? So this is another way where we really look at, we're segmenting out the care and cultivation activity levels for each of these. Angela asked in the chat, any tips on creating a venue for meetings that include travel? I'm going to come visit you seems awkward. Totally. And I assume, Angela, this is for donors that maybe aren't in your local area. They live elsewhere or maybe they're traveling, right? If we can always find another reason, like maximize your time when you're on the road. Are there other donors in the area that you can maybe make a group activity out of it or a small group gathering? Are you attending a conference? Can you go see a like-minded partner organization to learn from and then invite that donor to come with you? Or maybe you're attending a conference or a gathering, but there's ways to do it where we can make it that way too. And I think with individuals, I'm the same way. I'm like, please don't spend money on me. Like, I want the money to go to ministry, right? And that's part of the discovery process of learning more about our donors. Are they somebody that would like to have that one-on-one relational time? And if so, I mean, I know several donors that when I had direct work with donors, it was come stay with us. Like, just come rest for the weekend. We want to care for you, which was so meaningful because then we got to have great conversation around it too. So it's really, it's different for every donor, but I think if you can find that you are maximizing your time, that's going to be meaningful to that donor as well. But we always say, like, find the donors where they're most rested, right? When we make an ask, their vacation home is usually the best place because they're calm, they're rested, they're thinking about that, and there's no distractions around them. So we do want to live in their world as much as we can. Do you recommend new welcome donor packets? I do. I love them. Like, I think they're so great because it helps you understand a bit more about it. My thing about it, though, is what's the follow-up? What's the ask as a result of that new donor package? Is it you doing a follow-up coffee with them? I'd love to walk you through our ministry. I'd love to learn a little bit more about why you gave. That's such a fun question to ask givers, first-time givers. What prompted your gift today? You get to learn a lot of, oh, a friend recommended you. Oh, I saw the need. I Googled you, I Googled the first, you were the first nonprofit that showed up. Lean into that in that regard too, but definitely leaning into that in a personal note goes a long ways for sure. And we never know when a donor is just kind of testing the waters to see how are you going to react to a gift? Like, what is your thinking process and showing impact back to them? Yeah, it's great. Yes, set aside time for this, like thankfulness, handwriting cards, gratitude notes, like, and build it into your annual plan. If this is something that we're saying, okay, all of our P1s are getting a handwritten touch point every quarter. 1 quarter is from me, 1 quarter is from a board member, 1 quarter is from a staff member, 1 quarter is from a client, whatever it might be, like that then becomes part of your plan. And then you build in the steps to make sure that that happens. So yes, you've got to build time into your calendars. I know you all are slammed with all the other things, but this is important.
Angie, one example of that I just implemented myself, and that is for this year. I've had personal donors and I have had ministry donors, both kind of different groups. But for my personal donors, which I do something special for them at the end of the year, But I wanted to, January was pretty normal in how I communicate with them. But the beginning of February, I set up and I created a special note for any new donor because I invited some new people in. And so I set that up 2 days a week that I'm going to look at it the first thing in the beginning of my day, and I have a template for an email that I'm going to send out to new donors. But to all my monthly donors, my main focus this month is those that are monthly, is I have a special note that I created that just reinforces kind of things you've said of how long they've been
Yeah,
giving, the impact, what we did last year, what we're already doing. It's not an impact report,
right.
but it's just recognizing those individual people. And because I created one email template, I can do this in less than 10 minutes, 2 days a week, and just make sure I'm on top of it with those people. So the investment of time was writing it, and then now I'm just faithfully starting my day doing that. So
Yeah.
you can do that, and it doesn't have to take enormous amounts of your time and energy if you just have that plan. So I want to encourage you to
Yeah.
really do that. That's why I thought it was an on fire idea to make
Yeah.
sure you do that.
I know when
So
I was a missionary overseas, I served in Germany and Russia, and for my personal supporters, everyone got a postcard once a year. Like I kind of went through my list, I knew who it was, and I had the privilege of visiting a lot of ministries around Europe while I was there because European travel, they have it figured out, right? We don't, but they do. And so I'd send them a postcard from wherever I was. And so many of them were like, "Oh my gosh, I've never gotten a postcard from Slovenia. Like this is so cool." But even thinking about it, I was working with a client on Monday. We went to their annual plan. We said, what's on deck for February and March? And Easter cards were on deck. And so we started talking through, okay, our P1s are getting a handwritten Easter card from their primary caller, so the person who owns that relationship. Our P2s, we're going to do that as well. But our P3s, we're going to just do a postcard. So we had two versions, same thing, but a little less work
mhm,
on the P3s because the P3 list is massive. And then we
mhm.
talked through like how can we divide this up to our board members to handle these postcards. But it was one of those things where we need to talk about it now because it's got to go into design. Then in March, all of those need to be handed out so that they get mailed in time, right? So again, it was a prompting of our annual plan. And they have decided to do Thanksgiving and Easter cards instead of Christmas. They just kind of, the way that their rhythm of their work shows up, they are really busy in the Christmas season. So this was something that did a touch point where it's maybe not as busy for them and for donors. Okay, so as we think about annual plan, what does it do? It makes sure that we have a comprehensive strategy for all of our activities. We can make meaningful projections and stay on track. So just like I mentioned with that Easter card, like it was a reminder we need to get started on that. And then we developed the strategy around it and we modified it slightly because originally we had planned to do an Easter fold card for everyone. We just realized in our conversation that wasn't going to be doable. We're guarded against hijacking. We're guarded against things that people bring to us or ideas that come our way or events that are thrown on our plate that just don't fit our plan. We're able to say, you know what, this year, here's our plan. Next year, would love to consider it, but this is our outline for this year. And then we really break free from that fundraising treadmill. I don't know if this is a new term, but right, like every year, every January, like, oh, we're going to do it again. Well, there is good processes and systems that we do every year, but this helps us to not be running at warp speed. It helps us to spread things out over the calendar year and really focus our time and effort and attention to make sure that we are doing it well and that we're doing the follow-up well, which prevents burnout in the long run. So it's really helping to look at distributing those efforts within that. This is one example of an annual plan. Very simple. Again, you can make this as robust as you want. I have one organization, I show up and I get this massive printout because it's this Excel document that lives like, and it's just ongoing. Some organizations, it might live in a Google Calendar that's shared. You might have more columns to yours, separating out what's events versus communications. But this is an example of a small classical Christian school. This is their annual plan, real time. So you can see here on the right-hand side, they've given definition to their P1s, 2s, and 3s and 4s. So we've got our numerical number for how we're segmenting out that list. And then we have some definitions on the right here. So the DTC is their development team committee, but we've got the development chair, the head of school, the primary caller, that's the relationship owner, and then the office manager. And so again, this sets expectations for everyone, But I know for a fact this group, and this is based on their fiscal year, so you'd want to have it worked with your fiscal year, which we're going to talk about next. I know for a fact that right now in January and February, these are the things they're working on. They're meeting regularly with their team, they're updating the work, and then they're making sure that this is consistent with their numbers. So this is kind of one option. So this is what we're going to talk through, but I wanted you to see like, where are we going? How comprehensive are we talking? What does this look like here? So the way that I think about building annual plans is within your fiscal year and building it out into 3 key timeframes. So that's the steps we're going to walk through. So first off, we have our early fiscal year, right? And this is dependent on your fiscal year, but wouldn't it be great if we got to Q4 and we weren't scrambling for gifts? We were just able to talk to people, say thank you, and get icing on the top of our annual fund, right? All of our major gifts were in the door by that point, or our commitments were at least in the door, and we're able to really focus and develop in areas of just saying thank you and maybe even new gifts. So we want to focus our Q1 on really those securing those lead gifts from your most committed supporters. Now, my caveat to this is if one of your P1 donors is not somebody who gives in Q1, that would be something that would be different, right? I know that about my donor. I know they're a December because maybe they own a business and they have to see how their business does for the year first. That's okay, but what am I going to do with them in Q1 to keep us at the top of their mind for the rest of the year? So it may not be that you're making an ask, but you are doing something with them to engage them. These gifts really help to create momentum for us, especially when we go to present our case and we can say 50% has already been raised. Our top tier of our gift plan is already in the door. That's motivating to donors, especially new donors who have capacity. They want to see that you have a broad base of supporters and that you're not going to heavily rely on them, right? And so this helps that. We want to prioritize our face-to-face meetings with our top prospects during our Q1. And then we really get to cast vision for what the year is and then give them updates throughout the year. It gives us a whole year to tell them about their gift. Even if they don't give it until December, but they make a commitment, we get to tell them about how that gift is being utilized through the year.
You know, Benji,
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of a precursor to all of this is, you know, kind of it's not said here, but it is super important behind the scenes that means you and your team really need to know exactly what are the things you want to fundraise for. So to have these kinds of conversations, to have face-to-face meetings with your top prospects, you want to have really clearly thought through what are the projects you're looking for funding through the year. So I know for some of us that means, you know, gosh, I don't know, God's moving and we're growing and developing. If you're in that space where you're brand new and you're trying to figure that out, that's okay. But thinking about how do you want, you know, what is it you really want to do? And what is that? What do you think that's going to cost you? So that's part of this. It's a little behind the scenes before you doing this, but so critical. I don't know if you want to speak to that because I know you're not going to talk about case statements here,
Yeah.
but
I actually have that as a Q4 activity. So if we were thinking about that, we would have already done it, right?
Good. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. You want to know what is my annual goal? Usually around, depending on your fiscal year and how your board works, you've approved your budget, right? So you have an idea of what are we doing this year? And then how do we message that? And so we'll talk about that in Q4. But yes, Heather, I agree. Like going into this, and it could be that and again, everyone's a little different. It could be that your board doesn't approve your budget till the end of January, but you're on a calendar fiscal year. Whatever that might be, you're going to slightly adjust and determine kind of your quarters in that regard. But yeah, you've got to go into these lead donor conversations with a case statement, with a document that outlines your vision for the year so that you can report impact back on that. Definitely. Yeah. So some cultivation and care activities that are happening, thank you calls. Like, how do we say thank you for what happened in the previous year? So continuing to focus on those P1 and some bringing in some of those P2 donors, board members, executive directors, thank you calls. I actually have one organization that does a call-a-thon in January, and it's purely thank you. And everyone in the organization is together one afternoon. It's noisy, it's loud. There's like all sorts of snacks, but they just are calling to say thank you. And it's become a really fun tradition for them. That shows up on their January calendar. But then we're kind of looking at our P1s and our P2s of how are we making a personal connection point with them to say thank you. And then if you have a development team or a group that is working on this, right, they're going to kind of look at, okay, who am I assigned to for the year? Who am I the primary caller for? Are there any new givers that showed up in December that need a primary caller because of the level they gave? We want to bring on new volunteers into this and we want to keep meeting monthly. So this is one that if you've got a development team, like this is a way to pull them in. They should live on this annual fundraising plan because this is really their guidebook as well. All right, so as we look at Q2 and Q3, we're still focusing on our major gift asks. We're continuing those personal asks with our priority 1 and priority 2 donors. We really thought about the asking process. We've talked about it in previous webinars, but when we think about it, it's a casual conversation, a tour, a case presentation, and then an ask. And then we're saying thank you all the time. But as you think about that, some of your priority 1 donors might need a little bit more time, especially if they're newer to your organization to really be thinking. So it may not be that you get to them till Q2 or Q3 for that ask. Then we're really looking at care and cultivation, right? We're focusing on less direct asks for our P3 group. We're really looking more on like how can we do storytelling, experiencing the work with you. I always say like a tour. If you can get someone, if you have something that they can come tour, you can create a virtual tour or even a client story. It's you get to watch them watch your ministry in action, which is like a whole way for you to discover a whole lot, new things about them. What are they passionate? Where did they light up? Where did they take a pause? Because maybe it's a heavy moment for them. They really saw the need firsthand. So you get to do that through storytelling and experiences. We're really just demonstrating transparency and stewardship while building the case for our year-end giving. I just did a session on millennial and Gen Z giving. As a millennial, this is a trending topic, right? We're starting to inherit. We're also wealth building on our own, but transparency and stewardship is critical for these younger generations. We have a very large distrust of the institution, so to speak. And so we really need to be transparent with our budget and we really need to share information and bring them in because they also want to be active participants in your work. We're going to prioritize showing donors the direct impact of their previous gifts. So if you do an annual report, make sure that's getting in the hands of people in this quarter, following up with them. Even if it's a first-time gift, you get to use an annual report from a previous year to show them the growth of your organization. And then we really just want to think about too, like those who give with their heart, how are we bringing that in? Are there stories that we're telling? Are there videos that we're putting out on our social media or our email blasts? What are the ways that we're kind of building that in so that people are connected to the work and it's not just a transactional, let me write a check, right, within that.
Yeah, because if at this point of the year people haven't seen impact,
Right.
then they really start to question, are we getting stuff done?
Yep.
Is there movement? Is there progression? And they want to hear those stories. Those people are story junkies, but they really, those that are P1 and P2, they want to actually see and know that you're doing what you say you're going to do. That's where trust gets built.
Yep.
If you say you're going to do it, have you started? Don't wait, till 3/4 of the year. So getting an update to somebody, I think is super important at this season because it's not too late.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then really, as we think about this, we're kind of working on our stories and our updates. Like what's the visual compelling updates that we can do to show progress towards those goals, specific stories that donors have made possible? Because again, at this point, our lead givers have engaged with us, but we're building up to that mass ask. We're kind of looking at how do we communicate with the larger group? What are the ways that we can pull in tours and service opportunities for people to just come in and witness your mission in action? And then are there micro events that you can do? Are there ways that you can host smaller gatherings for people that maybe are like, oh, big events aren't my scene. But if you get some of my friends in a room, like I'm going to come here more. And so then you get to really kind of cater that But I think the thing about micro events is a lead giver who already committed for the year as a host for these events goes so far. Like to have them host, say why they support the work, why, maybe they volunteer as well, why they're engaged with it. That goes a long way for friends and new givers to just hear from someone who's a part of the work and is a lead giver to the work. And it's ownership for that donor to come alongside in that group too. So really be thinking about maybe this group, we need to pull them together because we're more likely to get them to say yes if their friend is there. So micro events are helpful strategy in that. All right, development team again, like we're reevaluating. We're always reevaluating primary callers. Is this the right person to own this relationship? Are they the best connection with that? Is it maybe two people need to tag team it? What does that look like? Hopefully you have an ongoing constant stream of new development team members who are coming in to help your work. And then we're looking at our annual development plan. We're looking at this plan and we're beginning to think, what do we need to modify? Because we're almost through Q3. Are there changes we need to make? What didn't work? And I'm all about that. Like we need to stop and pause and look at like what's worked, what's not worked, what do we need to adjust? Because we will forget that by the end of the year. So this is a great moment to kind of look back at the first few quarters and say, did that work well or do we need to modify? And then Q4. So this is where we start to look at our P3s, right? This is the big season that we're building up to. We're thinking about our year end. And for some of you, that may not be December, that might be October, November, whatever that might be. But what's the coordinated kind of mail and email appeals that go out that have different calls to action and that are segmented, right? We've segmented our list. We're not going to send the year end appeal ask to our P1s and P2s, but we're going to let them know it's happening because they might give again, but we're going to thank them for their gift. And then we're going to say, we're launching our annual end of year campaign. We wanted you to be aware. Thank you so much. Share with friends, right? But it's not an ask of them because they've already given. And we want to make sure we're asking that group once, but it's going to prompt them to think, especially if they're an end of year giver around that. So really be leaning into that. Giving Tuesday, if this is working for you, great. I won't get on my soapbox about Giving Tuesday, but I think it's one of those, there's so much noise around this. And so if you can tie it in and have it be something comprehensive instead of one blip on that day, I think that's going to serve you better. Because this year, my email, I didn't even look at it. Like when Loft, who I buy my clothes from, starts asking me for a Giving Tuesday for some foundation that I don't have any knowledge of how they spend the dollar, I start to like check out, right? So if it's something where Giving Tuesday is part of a strategy, embed it in, but be thinking strategically about how do we build up to it and how do we follow that as well. And then follow up with any key final one-on-one asks with major donors that haven't committed their annual gift. Maybe again, it's because they have a business, but they've been primed. They know it. They've seen impact already. This should be a very easy ask for you because you're aware of their timing of their gift too. So Q4 gets a little crazy, right? Got a lot of things going on, but that's where we want to focus in on. Then we also in our care and cultivation, like, are there appreciation gatherings we should be hosting? Do we have an annual Christmas gathering? Is it a place where we bring volunteers on to love on our clients? That's a way to say thank you too. But we want to send personalized notes. We want to be thinking about that because we're wrapping up the year. And then what are those like milestone or holiday greetings that we should be sending out to people? I've got several organizations I work with that one of them, they have this famous family bread recipe that's like been passed down from generations. And now every year the major donors, P1s and P2s expect that loaf of bread at Christmas time. So there's some of those, like I know one does poinsettias, one does a wreath. Like there's some of those things that for P1s and P2s, you could build that in as just something that becomes part of your rhythm. We do chocolates, like that's just kind of our thing. That's Godiva with chocolates. It's easy. We know what we do. We have our routine, but we're customizing it every year, right? And that's something that is on our annual plan to start in early October to make sure our address lists and our cards and everything are well done for that. And then this is really the development team, right? We're updating the case like Heather and I talked about earlier. If we've got our budget done, we want to hit the ground running in January with our fresh new look for the year. And so we're going to update that case statement materials. We're going to work on that budget, all of that. Again, reviewing, making sure our primary colors align, inviting new members, and continuing to meet monthly within that. So as you think about this, these are kind of the steps that I would encourage you to walk through with your team, those that are speaking into this process. Listing out that, and we're going to throw in the chat a Word document, very simple outline that you saw earlier that you can customize and build out to be what you need, but it's just a starting point for you. So feel free to download that if that's helpful. But again, like I said, like I've got some that it lives in Excel or Google Sheets or a Google Calendar. It needs to work for you. So it needs to be a format. It needs to be something that doesn't sit on a shelf that you're looking at every month and saying, where are we at? What's our timelines out on this? And then from there, you might have a sub-communications calendar or something like that. But as you think through these different steps, we want to list out our activities within that. So I've got these steps written out for you. Think about what are our early year fiscal year activities for Q1? What are the asks we're making? Who are we making those asks of? If you can put a donor name in the month, that's going to tell you, I know I need to build a tour in and then a case presentation and an ask. That's part of my work that I need to do in January, right? So it helps to identify what are the events that you're hosting? Are there different publications, or maybe your annual review report happens in Q1? What are those newsletter communications that are going out, or regular communications going out? Then we want to lean into step 2, which is our mid-year activities, right? Leaning in there. So again, personal asks, what are our personal visits? Are there events or micro events that we're pulling in? Our communications team. We're reviewing our plan and we're updating it because we will forget come December. And then looking at our end of year activities as well. What are those different things that are happening? Most critical piece, when do we start working on our case? When is our budget finalized? When can we start doing those revisions to that case document? And then put them on the plan calendar. Start using it. I've got one org, I even thought they use it on Trello too. So you've got tracking, right? There's so many different Monday.com. There's so many different services out there that are free that you can use to kind of build this out. But again, don't build it and let it sit on a shelf somewhere. It needs to be used for tracking. And then our gut check. So as we look at this, for our priority 1 donors, what are 3 cultivation and care activities that we're doing for every ask? How are we saying thank you, thank you, thank you? Newsletter content, a video recording saying thank you, inviting them to an opportunity to engage with you. What are those cultivation and care? For our priority 2, same thing. What are we doing for them? It's going to look a little different, but what are we doing? For priority 3, it's going to look a lot different, right? Because this is the mass group of people. But I would encourage you to think like, what's the one personal touch that we can do as part of these 3 cultivation and care activities for this group? Like, is there a handwritten card that goes at any point? Is there a note on a letter that goes? How can we really bring in the personal, not transactional there? And then is there anything on your list that you should stop doing to make room for higher priority activities? This is a question we should be asking ourselves all the time, because we're always looking for more opportunities to raise money, when in reality, those donors could be right in front of you. They just need to be cared and cultivated for, and they need to know how, what's the ROI on their giving? How are you stewarding those gifts? What kind of distinguishes you in your work? So this question of, is there anything that we need to stop doing, can sometimes be really hard for people, especially if you've inherited activities from previous founders or from development teams or staff. You've got to say, like, is this worth our time and effort here? Or is there a way where we can make this more personal, where we can pull people in, where we can use volunteers to really lean into that? And this is a hard question for boards, but it's a really good question to be asking throughout all of your work in that space.
Yeah, Vanjie, I love that so much. This gut check is so important because when you look at steps 1 through 4, anybody that's an overachiever, which most leaders that I know tend to be that way, they're going to get it all done at the same time. They're
Right.
excited, they're passionate, and sometimes we try to do too much. And I will say, one of our organizations that we saw when it was just starting off, it had a team of 1, then it was a team of 2. They're now over, 1.8 million, and they really focused on 3 major things, events,
Mhm.
activities,
Mhm.
and that was it. But what they did is what you're saying, and that's really the cultivation that is segmented.
Yep.
And they did that so well that those 3 events, they could target who and how they're going to do those things. So it's not more is better.
Right.
You have to, really go, how do we do what we do? And then how do we cultivate
Yep.
those people? How do we become really good at relationship building and cultivation? And you will grow and people will love partnering with you. So don't hear with all those good steps that she's got. You have to do all of them that are there. You need to know what that rhythm is, and that's the importance of the plan and the gut check. So love that you said that. Love that you're saying what should you stop do? What do you need to make room for? What are those higher priorities? And when you get that clear, then you will be able to see how do we grow? What do we do really well? Not everyone does the same things really well. And
Right.
so love what you just highlighted there. So important.
And I think that's a really good point to make, Heather, is there are things that we do well, and then we launch something and we don't do it well because it's added in. It's like, oh, we got to do that. I catch this in my own life all the time. I'm adding it in. We've got to have a plan in place to execute it well. Otherwise, it's going to fizzle off and somebody's going to notice. A donor's going to say, well, you started this thing and then it didn't follow through. And then I was wondering, like, where did it go? So if
Mhm.
we're going to add something in to our annual plans, we need to make sure that when we can handle it, we have the capacity to do it and we have somebody who can own it. And then we need to execute it really well and follow up on it because that does speak to people. People are watching and we all approach things from different standpoints there.
Mhm.
I love this quote. The best plan is only good intentions unless it degenerates into work. And this is all about working the plan that you have, but that's a constant evolution, evaluation of what you're doing there. So within that space.
I
So
had a group say one thing to me
yeah,
that I had a group say we worked on this whole plan and we were really developed it all and we were checking in on a regular basis. And halfway through the year, they said, the plan is good. We've learned some things, but it actually doesn't change what we're doing. We're doing the same thing we've always done.
yep,
And we saw this disconnect between the two. So I think what you just said is super important that if the plan is sitting there, but it doesn't change what we do, we're doing the same thing we've always done. You either need to change your plan to own what you've always done, or you actually need to look at what do we need to do in order
yep,
to meet our plan. Because it's easy to plan and it's easy to then just do everything we've always done.
yep.
So really helpful.
Yeah, we talk about that with strategic planning all the time. I mean, I remember when I was at the university, I was given a large binder. Think I read my section once and I never looked at it again because there was no implementation to it, right? And so this plan allows us to have somebody who's responsible. Maybe then there's subtasks that are built out of it, but at least we all are speaking the same language and we're coming back to this plan regularly, if not weekly, to look at it and say, okay, where am I headed? Because that's when squirrels come in. They just invade and we get in trouble. So yeah, so we've got some time for questions. I did just want to throw this out to everyone. We have a couple Institute boot camp training sessions coming up in St. Augustine Beach, Florida, where we're based. I'm actually calling in from Camas, Washington. I forgot to mention that, but we have preparing your organization for a capital campaign, which if you're considering a capital campaign and want to understand, like, what do I need to do? We go all the way from strategic planning to feasibility study to the capital campaign process, just to give you an overview of what that looks like. And then we also have cultivating major gifts, which is if you're looking for like, how do I manage my portfolio? What's the asking process look like? How do I actually make an ask? All of those kinds of things are wrapped into that cultivating major gift. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. If finances are an issue, let me know. Like we'd love to talk through that. But this is just a really great kind of inroads to that opportunity too.
And giving a plug for that, I know an organization super small. I mean, it's got a team of three that they're international, and they have worked alongside of the focus group and has really made a significant difference in their planning, in their, attention to the right people at the right time. And they don't have a big budget. So
Right.
even though focus group isn't entirely free, they work with you. They are kingdom minded, have some of the best people in it, and so can't recommend them highly enough. And it's not just for this. This is one big event, but there's lots of ways to connect to the focus group. Check out their website because you will not be sorry if you work alongside of them.
Yeah, and we just published, we have a big event we do every January. It's called Symposium. This year we did TED Talks, and all those videos are up online. So if you just need a 20-minute, like, I'm not alone, I can do this. There's major donors speaking, there's CEOs of organizations, and if you need just a little power boost, those are on there as well.
We just want to serve you as best we can, and so grateful, Vanjie, for your time. She's got a very full schedule heading out to Egypt and then off to Guatemala, so she's got her hands full. So we bless you and thank you for the time you've invested today and for everyone else. So let me just close by praying. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this time together, for each leader here on this call, for the ministries they represent. We want to serve your kingdom. We want to be hands and feet. And Lord, we know that there's so much we don't know that we have to learn and so many things to do. We just pray, God, you would help us see the priorities in front of us. We bless Vanjie. We thank you for her investment in us and in this time. And God, would you multiply the time in our day? We just commit the rest of our day to you in Jesus' name. Amen.